Rather than face the prospect of a potential flood of desperate refugees, proposals were raised in Britain to send Jews to the South American colony of British Guiana, but fears of local opposition ended the speculation. In the United States, it was proposed to create a Jewish enclave in Alaska, but Roosevelt vetoed the idea from fear of creating a Jewish state within a state. What neither country wanted was an enlarged Jewish presence on the home front, whatever the moral grounds for allowing it to happen. Roosevelt's ambassador in Moscow, Lawrence Steinhardt, observing the pressure of the refugee movement in 1940, summed up the choice his government faced. I am of the opinion that when there is even the remote possibility of a conflict between humanitarianism and the welfare of the United States, that the former must give way to the latter. The coming of war only strengthened this conviction. From September 1939, no further Jewish immigration to Britain from Germany or German occupied Europe was to be permitted. So far as we and France are concerned, wrote a Foreign Office official, the position of the Jews in Germany is now of no practical importance. In the United States, congressional opposition ensured that the existing tight quota system was not revised. The German authorities were keen to expel as many Jews as possible, right up to the moment in October 1941 when Himmler finally banned immigration in favor of annihilation. But the number fortunate enough to find an avenue to the west was a tiny fraction of those in need. Immigration to Palestine, which was still permitted by quota, never reached the levels permitted under the White Paper because no effort was made to facilitate the flight of Jews from Europe. In 15 of the 39 months in which it was possible for Jews to leave Germany and its new empire, all immigration was suspended by the British authorities as a punishment for a shrinking number of illegal immigrants. The number of Jewish immigrants to the United States in 1940 was 36,945, but thousands more waited in Europe because the quotas were full. Those who managed to reach Britain suffered further indignity when the British government ordered in June 1940 that most should be interned as enemy aliens, following a public panic about fifth columnists. Most detainees were later released, but the conditions they suffered in temporary camps in Britain, Canada, and Australia were initially harsh and humiliating. The overwhelming crisis faced by the Jewish population of Europe spurred on the search for escape in defiance of the regulations imposed by the West. Here, the British authorities displayed a callousness that entirely belied the claim that the British were fighting for decent values. When three overladen ships sailing from Romania, full of hungry and fearful Jewish refugees from Central Europe, arrived off the coast of Palestine, the fugitives were first denied the right to disembark, then brought ashore and interned in crude camps, while efforts were made to find some way of forcing them out of Palestine. The authorities decided to send some on to the island colony of Mauritius, but the refugees desperate and demoralized by their mistreatment, refused. On the day they were to be deported, they lay naked on their beds in protest. Colonial police beat the men with sticks and then carried the naked men and women to the ship, where their possessions were dumped in the sea or seized and sold off for Palestine government funds. On the way to the island, over 40 died of typhoid or debilitation. On arrival, they were interned behind barbed wire with armed guards, trading one harsh regime for another. They remained imprisoned, the men separated from their wives and children, until the last months of the war. Sir John Schackburg, Deputy Under Secretary at the Colonial Office, thought the protests showed that the Jews have no sense of humor and no sense of proportion. From spring 1941, illegal entry to Palestine dried up.